Surprise! Hello! I bet you didn't expect to see me anytime soon, did you? Well, hello and welcome to this. Unbelievably, this is the 81st Sockmatician podcast episode. It's been about 18 months since my last podcast episode, so there's lots to catch you up on, and blimey, I'm recording this, it's the 2nd of January 2022, and it feels like a very, very long time since I've done this, so I'm going to apologise upfront now for any pauses, any breakdowns of thought, any sort of brain farts that turn me into some gibbering fool in front of the camera, because I really have forgotten how to do this. I've forgotten how any of this works, and I don't know what this is. So let's call this, why don't we call this Sockmatician Podcast version 2.0, because I'm going to rewrite all the rules and I haven't really planned anything. I've just come to the decision that it's time to get back in the saddle. So why have I not been podcasting? That's the question. I know that a lot of people have been wondering, and thank you to everybody who's been messaging me to say how much they missed the podcast. It's been really one of the reasons why I'm back is that, actually. I know that people have missed this, and listening to me getting all silly and crazy and tongue-tied and laughing at myself and doing all the silly things that I've fallen into the habit of over the last 6 years or so since I first started this back along. The main reason why I haven't been podcasting is because of the book. Anyone who follows me on social media will know about the book. Maybe you're one of the backers of the book. For anyone who doesn't know about the book, I'm not talking about Guys Knit. Guys Knit was my first book. That was a beginner's knitting manual, instruction manual on how to do that. That copy is still available from Sockmatician.com. It's out of print now. It's because the publishing arm of Haynes that looked after my book was dissolved after a merger, and my editor got fired and made redundant, and they don't deal with it anymore. So I've got all the existing copies of the book in a big stack over there, and I'm the only place you can buy them from now, apart from secondhand ones on Amazon or some old stocks somewhere. So head to www.sockmatician.com if you would like to purchase your signed by the author copy of Guys Knit. You don't need to know about that because you're already knitters. So what is this second book? Back in November 2019, golly, over 2 years ago, I launched a Kickstarter to crowdfund the writing process of what will be my next book, which I'm sure you know this is for anyone who is new to the podcast. I haven't even said who I am. Hello, I'm Nathan Taylor, otherwise known as Sockmatician. That's me. And I'm recording this in London. I told you I'd forgotten how to do this. I live in North London, and you know all this. And the second book is about double knitted brioche. I'm calling the book Sockmatician's Double Knitted Brioche, not only because it's my book on the subject, but because it's also my subject in a way. I have sort of pioneered and developed this technique of doing double knitted brioche, which is a slightly different technique. I've spoken about this at length, so I'm preaching to the choir here. So that's the long and the short of it is I'm still writing the book. 2 years on, it has become a mammoth task. The writing, so for anybody who's been wondering about where the book is and what's going on, if you're not one of the backers, you won't have been getting the updates that I've been sending out periodically through the Kickstarter website. But if you are interested to know, things are exciting, things are moving on in the book world. It's huge. It is an absolutely enormous tome. I have written, I think it's 123,000 words on the current manuscript draft, which is larger than most people's PhDs, and I have to say I'm really, really proud of it. It is currently with Michelle, who is my glorious tech editor, and without whom I don't know where I would be in the knitting world, because she's so brilliant and gives me so much insight and brings her experience to the work that I do, and helps me enormously as tech editing and proofreading and copy editing and suggesting amendments and maybe structural things. She's just fabulous, and I can't praise her highly enough. So she's had the book for about a month. It is, as I say, huge, so it's taking a while to work through it, but also she's got to familiarise herself with all the techniques. So bear in mind, this is a technique that's new to everybody. What was lovely, we had a conversation just before Christmas, and when she'd had a chance to get her teeth into it a bit, and she was saying how much she was enjoying coming at this editing work as a consumer. Normally she comes at tech editing and pattern support as an expert, whereas this time she was learning it all from scratch. And the interesting thing was, back then, as now really, there are no photographs in the book, so it's literally just the raw text. So she's having to learn it without any of the learning aids that will be in the book. There will be 87 videos. I've shot 63 of them already, and just recently made those available to the backers only on private links. So if you are one of the backers and you don't know about that, then do get in touch. Because you should be getting your update emails from Kickstarter. If you're not, do let me know. And so she hasn't got any of the videos, and she hasn't got any of the photographs in the step-by-step tutorials. There will be step-by-step guides all the way through the book showing people how to do it. So she's had to do it just from the raw text. Now that sounds like an impossible task, but it's been really helpful for me as the author, because she's been able to tell me if my instructions work. If the instructions on their own are enough, bingo, we're in business. Because then with the addition of the photographs and with the videos as well, then everyone's gonna be laughing. If she gets into trouble with the instructions, then it may be that the photographs would help that, but it also may be that I need to go back and rewrite a few things just to make things a little bit clearer. So it's been a really, really fun process for her, but she's got a lot of work to do trying to get herself into the brain of this man, and that's a scary prospect, and I wouldn't recommend anybody tries to do that, so that she can then do all the work she needs to tell me what she as a consumer and what you all as consumers might need from the book that isn't already there, if it's not already there. Long sentence, if you know what I mean. So that has been taking up all of my time. That's a lie. Obviously, that's a lie. It's been a tough time, hasn't it? This podcast, I always want it to be a sort of antidote to the woes and tribulations out there in the world, but who'd have thought 18 months after my last podcast episode that we would still be at the mercy of the COVID-19 pandemic, and things are always changing there. I don't need to, wherever you are in the world, I know you have your own struggles with it as well, but here in the UK, we're creaking under the weight of lots and lots of hundreds of thousands of cases every day, but hopefully the news at the moment is that the current strains are less virulent. They're certainly they're more transmittable, but they're not as deadly or as dangerous. So hopefully I don't know. A year ago we thought the same. 18 months ago we thought it wouldn't be too much longer, and it is. Add to that, there's been lots of family stresses and pressures going on. Sadly, in July last year, we said goodbye to my mum's wonderful partner, Ron, who lost his battle with lung cancer. Actually, he didn't lose his battle with lung cancer. He died from lung cancer. He battled and he won. I mean, he really did. He was a trooper and a wonderful man. And he is much, much missed. Obviously, the first 6 months of 2021 were mostly taken up with that in our family and his illness and dealing with it and coming to terms with the finality of it. And oddly, I think all of us found a strange kind of peace in the finality of it. We weren't clinging on to the vain hope that one day he might get well, because we knew he wouldn't. So although it was terribly, terribly sad, there was a sense of acceptance that came with the knowledge of the finality, if that makes sense, which I think helped us all to get through it. Hope springs eternal, but hope can sometimes be a cruel mistress, and we didn't have that added layer of pain. When constantly hope gets taken away, so that was difficult, and the ramifications of that are still making themselves felt in and among my family, particularly for my mum. It's very hard for her. She's 6 months in to that year of firsts, and firsts are the first Christmas, the first birthday, the first New Year. Here we are. All of those things, the first anniversary, all of those things sting the most, and that's tough. And so there's been lots of reasons really why I haven't had the inclination, I suppose, certainly not the motivation to record these podcasts, which I do love doing. And actually, already talking now, I'm wondering why I left it so long. I have missed the immediacy and the feedback that I get from people, and I've missed the interaction that this kind of conversation brings. Even though this is just me talking to my camera, there's always time and room for people to contact me via comments or Instagram or here on YouTube underneath, and I encourage that. I really do. If I can't get back to you, I do read them all, and I do endeavour to get back to as many people as I can. I've missed this, and I'm really looking forward to getting stuck back in. So, I just did it, didn't I? After 18 months of not podcasting, already I'm clicking my fingers. I can only apologise for that. So I've also been, alongside writing the book and getting everything to where it is now with the book, obviously all the knitting of all the samples, the designing, everything. There's I think 14 or 15 patterns in the book, I forget how many, and they range from simple like mitts, fingerless mitts with a thumb hole, not even a thumb fourchette or a thumb itself, but a hole at the side, and simple leg warmers, to lace shawls in several colours, and a massive poncho and blankets and things like that. I'm not going to go into the detail of all of the patterns for the book in this episode. I'm going to save that for an episode around about the time that the book is released. I want to sort of whet people's appetites for the book itself at the time. So I think it would be a little bit premature to do that. So I've got lots of other stuff. All this stuff here is stuff I want to talk about today. But also alongside all the book writing, things like that, I've also been really focusing on my acting career again. I've been saying for a long time, prior to all the unpleasantness of 2019, I'd been saying to myself for quite some time that I was missing my theatre career and my performing life. I've always felt, and this is in no way to diminish the relationships I've built up with people in the knitting world, but knitting was something I fell into by accident, and performing was something I've dedicated my life to. And I always felt in a way that knitting was what I did, but singing and acting is who I am. And that's really hard to get away from. And so the old adage, you can take the boy out of the theatre, but you can't take the theatre out of the boy, in my case is definitely true. So I, just going into the pandemic, literally about a month before the first lockdown started in 2020, I found myself a new agent and wanted to build a new relationship with him. His name is Russell Hawkins, and really focus on my performing career again. It's something I have missed enormously, and thankfully it's going pretty well, considering that we've been in a global pandemic. Which is a horribly tautological phrase. Pandemic also already means global. Considering we've been in a pandemic, and that theatre particularly has completely shut down, and reopened and shut down and reopened and shut down, is in difficult times, I've actually not done too badly. I've been lucky enough to film 2 commercials for the television, one for Danish television, one for Channel 4 here in the UK. Oddly, both naked. Don't know what that says about me. Shameless hussy, that's what it says about me. But last year, well, gosh, it's the year before last now that we're in January 2022, but Christmas 2020, I was lucky enough to be able to take part in a live stage show when most theatres were completely closed. We were able to do it because we were outdoors in December, and it was an adult pantomime called Frostbite, Who Pinched My Muff? Yes, and I played the demon Frostbite and thoroughly enjoyed being outrageous, over the top and utterly filthy. In that we only ran for 2 weeks because then the restrictions changed here in the UK and we weren't able to continue, so the show had to close, everything shut down again, it was awful. But then in 2021 I started touring with a show called Masters of the House, which is a sort of Magic of the Musical style tour. There's 4 of us on stage and 4 in the band, and we do little one-nighter tours here, there and everywhere. We've only done a few so far, maybe 5, 6, 4, in fact 4. And we've got some more dates coming up, which is lovely. And finally, and most recently, this Christmas, I was once again treading the boards in pantomime, this time a much larger scale production at the Dorking Halls Theatre in Surrey. Excuse me, that's my husband trying to get in contact with me, even though I told him I am recording. I'm sure he's fine. Let me just check on that actually. Quick edit there. All is well, he's fine, he's on his way home. I was playing the flesh creep, who is the baddie in Jack and the Beanstalk, and I've never been on a poster before, and this was our poster. This is actually the front of the programme, but look, there I am. Looking absolutely ridiculous and crazy as always. This is Stevie Ritchie, who played Simple Simon, the comedy character. This is Dan Bravo, who played Jack, Robin McEnany, who played Jill, and Chris Castley, who played Dame Trot. And we had a thoroughly lovely time. It was only a short run, actually. We started rehearsals at the beginning of December, and on the 6th, I think it was, we had less than 2 weeks to put the show together, and then we opened with a public performance for Cubs and Scouts and Brownies and Guides and Rangers and Beavers and whoever else is involved in scouting these days, on the 17th. So the 6th, 11 days to play, and then opened fully on the 18th and ran through to the 28th. So we had a couple of days off. 1 day off before Christmas, 1 day off on Christmas Day, and that was it. And I have to say, I had a thoroughly good time. Here is a photograph of what I looked like in it. Actually, I'll cycle through some here so you can see what's going on. It was so much fun. I was given license to change anything I wanted to in the script. The script with pantomime is usually only just a jumping off point anyway. As long as you get the story out, it doesn't really necessarily matter It doesn't really necessarily matter if what the words are, as long as what you're saying is good and it's got to be funny. So if some of it wasn't particularly funny, I was able to sort of craft in my own jokes, and there was a lot of ad-libbing as well going on, and all of that is bread and butter to me. I love all of that kind of stuff. So for me, it was an absolute joy. I was getting booed really, really loudly. If not loudly enough, I would turn around and walk off stage and come back on again and make sure the audience were booing me even more loudly. It was great fun. So that's really that whole 20 minutes has been the reason why you haven't seen much of me here on YouTube. I think one of the other reasons is that since lockdown began nearly 2 years ago, 22 months ago now, I think it was March the 16th, I think was the first one, every single Thursday night I've been hosting a Zoom, call it the Zoom Be Along. It's not a knit along, it's not a crochet along, it's not even a craft along, it's just a be along. People just come along and be. And it started off as a way of sort of reaching out to people who might be feeling isolated or lonely or frightened at the beginning of the pandemic when we had no idea what was going on. But it's grown into something that I absolutely love, and I'm showing no signs of abating anytime soon. It goes from strength to strength, and we've got a regular crew of people that come every week, and new people pop in from time to time. It's always lovely to see people, and they usually come back because we make them so welcome. So it's always good. So if you want any more details about that, head to my Instagram page. Well, it doesn't need to be no. So I've got a Linktree thing. So the Linktree link will be in the below. It's just linktr.ee/Sockmatician, I think it is. But I'll put the link in the down there, and it's a Zoom room. So all you need is Zoom. Click on the link on there, and it opens up Zoom. And it's every Thursday at 8 p.m. UK time, and it goes on till late as well. It's usually 5 or 6 hours long, and we have a right raucous time. People talk about their knitting, and it's been brilliant, and it's been much more immediate in many ways than talking on YouTube. So I've got used to sharing my stories and my life and doing what I do there on Zoom, rather than on camera, if you see what I mean. In person would be great. Would be lovely if we could all get together and have a proper knit and natter night. But in many ways, that would only serve local people. So Zoom is a great way of doing that globally. I have people from all over the world joining us. And it's fantastic. So again, that's one of the reasons why I haven't been here. But I'm here now. And I hope to go back to doing a sort of fortnightly schedule, maybe. I'm not going to put any pressure on myself for that, because obviously life gets in the way, despite one's best endeavours. But anyway, how are you? Are you well? I hope you're all dealing with the tribulations that the world is throwing at you at the moment well enough, and that your loved ones are safe and happy. I'm pretty good, I have to say. Life is pretty good. Don't know where my next pay packet's coming from, but now that the panto's over, but there'll be some content. There'll be something. There'll be something coming up, and I've got all sorts of lovely knitting things to show you. So this podcast really is about saying welcome back, and thank you for having me and spending time with me and allowing me to be the person that accompanies you while you're doing whatever it is you're doing at the moment. I very much appreciate that. But I also want to just talk about this part of knitting here. This is all the stuff that I haven't yet released. None of this is for the book. So this is stuff that I've been knitting along the way over the last couple of years or so, and stuff that I certainly haven't mentioned on a podcast, because it's the last podcast episode predates all of this stuff, but you may have seen some of it on social media, but some of it you won't. So what have I been doing? So as everybody knows about me, my big thing is double knitting. My big thing over the last couple of years has been double knitted brioche, which is a form of double knitting. It's brioche, but it's done in a double knitted way. So it's not the same as ordinary brioche. It's done in one pass, and it's done with carrying both yarns at the same time, working one stitch then the other, not alternating the way you would do with ordinary brioche, and it creates a slightly different texture. One of the things that I have wanted to do with the book is again supposed to be just a springboard for the technique. There's a lot of patterns in the book, but that's just because there's no patterns out there for this technique. So why would people want to buy the book, learn the technique, if there's nothing they can do with it? So I wanted to put enough patterns in the book to make it worthwhile and viable for people to put in the time and effort to learn it. But I've also been working on stuff that goes sort of beyond the book. It takes the techniques from the book and takes them a little bit further. So I can talk about some of that in a second. This is going to be a little bit sort of hodgepodge, really, because there's no order. But last year, I can't remember exactly when it was, but for about a 6-month period, I suddenly had this hugely productive period where I was just sort of coming up with my brain was just firing all over the place, and I was really enjoying some of the things that I was talking about. That made no sense. You see, I was already thinking ahead. I was really enjoying the things I was doing, and they're the things I want to talk about. That's what I meant to say there. Some of you will already have seen this. So this is nothing to do with double knitting brioche, and it's not really double knitting either, but it kind of is. It's an extended form of double knitting called triple knitting. So this is my Batten Bonkers hat, and it's 3 colours. And I know you've heard me talk about this before if you've watched this podcast at all. It's the same on the inside as it is on the outside. So it's completely reversible. It's a great hat. I love it. I really love it. And it's called triple knitting because not just because it has 3 yarns, although that's nothing to do with the nomenclature there. It's called triple knitting because there are 3 layers of fabric. So can you see on this square here, the outer portion of this square is pink on the outside of the hat, it's blue on the inside of the hat. Well, sandwiched between the pink layer and the blue layer, there's a green layer as well. So what triple knitting gives you the option to do is create, it's not stranded, so there's no floats in this, so you get the same sort of stretch as you do with double knitting rather than stranded knitting, and you get the same richness and stretch and drape, but you get this thickness, which is wonderful. So that's what triple knitting is, and I know I've spoken about this, but one of the hats that I put together fairly soon after this is called Batten Bonkers, by the way, and that's available on Ravelry now. One of the patterns that I put together afterwards was this hat. Now this is I call it the triple jack hat for very good reason. It's a striped hat, as you can see, with vertical stripes, but the crown looks like that. I'm so proud of this, I have to say. Obviously that's the Union Jack, and it's as close to being accurate as I could possibly manage, and it looks great on. I wear it sometimes with the brim cuffed up like that as well, which I really like. And unlike the Batten Bonkers hat, which is a sort of a regular repeating pattern, so it looks exactly the same on the inside, even though the colour placement is different, because the colour placement is different on this hat, it's very different on the inside. You get a chance to see the Union Jack with its colours all squished around and swooshed about, which I think is really exciting and really fun. I love this hat. The pattern itself, the Union Jack pattern, is created entirely with the crown decreases. There are no increases in this hat. It literally, just as the crown comes together, the decreases that I would have needed to use anyway have been spaced judiciously enough to create that. And you can see there that even right in the center with these little lines of center double decreases, just continuing the pattern into the bumhole bind off there in the center. A lot of serendipity went into the designing of this hat. It just worked. I mean, it was one of those things where all the moving parts came together in just the right way, and I could not be more proud of that. So that's the triple knitting that I was devising and designing, coming up with. Then there was, I might as well talk about this hat. Now this is, I don't think I've shown this on social media at all, and I'm really interested in what other things I could do with this technique. I'm deliberately not showing it to you yet. So whereas this is 3 colours and 3 layers, this is 3 colours and 3 layers. So this is like triple knitting. Standard triple knitting. I call it standard, as if it existed before. This is back to being double knitting, even though there are 4 colours. Now you might think, well, yeah, Alistair Postquin has done some things with 4 colour double knitting. This is not 4 coloured double knitting, because with 4 coloured double knitting, you have 2 of the colours are sort of stranded in between the front and back 2 stitches like that, and that gives a rigidity. This is true double knitting. But because it uses 4 colours, I don't know whether to show it to you or try and explain it first. I'll show it to you. This is the hat that I'm talking about. There are 4 colours of yarn in this hat. There is a light pink, there is a deep purple, there's a green, and there's a pale grey. But because look at that crown, beautiful. Oh, look at that. But because of the way the yarns are held, I'm calling this technique multi-marled double knitting. We all know what marling is. Marling is where you hold two yarns of a different colour together and you get this marled effect. The colours marl together. This is multi-marled double knitting. And the reason it's called that is because holding the 4 yarns separately, I knit with both with yarn in each hand when I do double knitting, so 2 on one finger and 2 on the other, but keeping them separate, I can choose at any point which 2 colours to create the knit stitch with, and the other 2 colours will become the purl stitch for the inside of the fabric. And if I'm choosing any 2 out of 4, it means I've got 6 different colour combinations, so I can create 6 different shades with the same technique. And I think it's really interesting. I particularly love that crown. It took me so long to work out how to do that 5-petaled flower over what is an 8-segmented crown, where everything had to come together and work like that so that it would look like one of these 5-petal flowers, which I was blithely using as I designed the whole thing. So on the inside, it looks very different. It gets a bit fluffy on the inside. And that's the inside of it. Again, it's using the same 4 colours to create the same 6 colour, the appearance of the same 6 colours, but they're all in different places. It's a really, really interesting technique, and one that I want to explore more in the future. This is made with 4 fingering weight yarns held double, 2 for the front and 2 for the back. So it's really thick and it's chunky, but it is only double knitting. There's only 2 layers of fabric, so there's no floats, because 2 yarns are in play on the front and 2 yarns are in play on the back, or outside and inside, whichever way you want to look at it. And I just think it gives you this really, really interesting effect. I'm not sure I chose the best colours for this hat, to be honest. I think I could explore a little bit more what colour options work well, so this looks a bit speckly, but you could probably blend them together a little bit more. It's a little bit like the paintings of Georges Seurat and the Pointillist painters of the post-impressionist era, where they used coloured dots to create shades, and the mixing is done in the palette of your eye rather than with ink or paint. I think it's really interesting. I love it. So that was me sort of extending the concept of multicoloured, multi-layer knitting in different ways. I'm very, very happy with that. I also I think I've called it. It's not available yet. This is so from now on, everything is going to be stuff that I'll be writing up once the book is out, and working on getting sort of, basically, I haven't earned any money for ages. The money from the Kickstarter book has been keeping me going for the last 2 years. I now need to start earning some money, so hopefully these patterns will, when they come to fruition, I hope people will like them enough to. These are both already out, Triple Jack and Batten Bonkers. Go and get them now. Plug. This one you'll have to wait for, but I'm calling it Floribundus, so look out for that. Then this one's also available, but I just don't think I've had a chance to speak about it yet. This is a cowl called I'm calling it Pairs of Squares, and I've worn this a lot over the winter, and I really love it. This is made with the technique on this. It is double knitting, but it's double knitted mosaic. So if you're familiar with mosaic knitting, it's where you usually work with 1 yarn at a time, and you knit certain stitches and slip other stitches. Now, slipping stitches pulls a stitch up from the row below, and you work mosaic in sets of pairs of 2 rows at a time. So you work 2 rows with one colour and then 2 rows with the next, doing them exactly the same, and it builds up this lovely slip stitch technique. It's a great way of putting patterning colour work patterning into your knitting, but only having to use one colour at a time. Well, this is double knitted mosaic. So mosaic is usually a one-sided technique. This is double knitted mosaic and some double knitting as well. So this outer section here, which I just love that texture, I really, really do, is all done with the slip stitches. But if you can see on the inside, of course, it's the opposite. So it obeys all the rules of double knitting just by having the it's actually really easy to do. I'm not going to try and pretend I can do tutorials on this now. There's all sorts of stuff in the pattern. It's called pairs of squares because it's all made up of lots and lots of different squares, and it's double knitted mosaic, double knitted mosaic, and double knitted mosaic. But these two sections here and here, those are pure double knitting. So that's why it's gone into stocking stitch there. You can do stocking stitch mosaic, but I deliberately wanted to use the squishiness of the texture of garter stitch mosaic. So even though it's in the round, it's garter stitch. So some of these are done with pearl rows, but again on the inside, everything is reversed. So that's what it looks like on the inside there. This pattern is such a joy to knit, but the squish in it is something that I've not known in my life before. So this is made, all of these so far, in fact most of the stuff at the moment is made with my own yarn range, which is merino, alpaca and possum. So it's really, really soft yarn anyway, but this is DK weight yarn, and yet it's creating a garter stitch texture, which is also bouncy and squishy anyway, but it's double thickness garter stitch texture, which is really bouncy and squishy, and it is glorious. So the reason why I put these bands of double knitting in there is to hold the texture together, because oddly, even though you knit it all in one, the texture oddly, and I still not sure I quite understand it, is hollow. Double knitted mosaic is hollow. So I put the double knitting sections in there just to tie it all together, so you're not knitting a big bag. But this, I love this cowl so much. It's so cozy and so warm and so squishy and so delicious, and actually really, really easy to do. So if you're into double knitting and want to try some extra techniques, then go to my Ravelry store and check out the pairs of squares cowl. It's just love it. I really, really love that. And then while I say the Zoom Be Along people, we were looking at the work of, I've got the book here, I have, hang on a second, I can't find it, Reversible Two-Colour Knitting, here we go. So this book here, I managed to get hold of a copy of this. This is Reversible Two-Colour Knitting by Jane F. Neighbours, and it's from, when was it written? Let me see when it first published. 1974, I did know that. 1974, the year that I was born. This book is from, and it's a really interesting book. It's a real sort of precursor to double knitting, really. It's got lots of things which are, she calls them reversible geometrics, that look like this. These are what I would call pure double knitting, but done in the old-fashioned way. So the old-fashioned way of doing double knitting was working with one yarn at a time and working across the yarn, working all the stitches with one colour and slipping all the stitches that you wanted to be in another colour, and then doing a second pass with the other yarn. That's no longer how people tend to do double knitting, although you still can. But you know, the interesting thing about this book is there's lots and lots of different things in it which aren't really double knitting. They're sort of just reversible things, so they look nice on the back as well as on the front. There's all these different textures here, and these are the simple reversibles, and then they've got really, really interesting stuff. So while we were looking through this and talking about it on the Zoom Be Along, I came across this, is it this section here? No. There's a section in here which really caught my attention, and it's sort of like, here we are. This looks like double knitting, except That's the front and that's the back, all the other way around. Look, the colours are the same. The colours are not reversed. I was really intrigued by that. So just unpicking it, it's a really, really interesting concept. Basically what you're doing is knitting a rib, and you're working a knit, a purl, a knit. It's a 1 by 1 rib. Knit a purl, knit purl, knit purl, knit purl. But you can do it by and you do it with 1 yarn at a time, like the mosaic. But it's not really mosaic, because you are slipping stitches and working other stitches, but you're working them in pairs. So if you knit with yarn A, you then purl with yarn A as well. And then if you want a yarn B colour, you slip it with the yarn behind and then slip it with the yarn in front. And then you knit with yarn A and then purl with yarn A. So you're not alternating the colours, you're working an entire pair with 1 yarn. And that gives rise to a very, very interesting type of fabric. And I've been playing with it here. And I'm putting together, I'm calling this just a scrappy scarf, because it's good for using up scraps. But let me see if, so this section here, for example, you'll notice, eagle-eyed among you, it's a very similar pattern. I've used the same chart just because I wanted, this wasn't really going to be a pattern, this was just going to be me trying stuff out, but I thought, well, you know what, I quite like this. I'm going to carry on working on it. So on this side, you've got the brown or the orange pattern on the purple background. Well, on the back, you've also got the brown or the orange pattern on the purple background. And likewise here, can you see that there's no reversal of colours at all. It's like double knitting without the mirrored effect. It's the weirdest thing in the world, and it's only done with 1 yarn at a time as well. So what on earth is going on? Well, if you look at it, it actually is a rib. If you open it up like that, you can see how the rib opens up completely, but it holds itself together under its own integrity. So this is, I'm loving this. It's really, really wide, and it's going to be a glorious scarf to wear, because it feels like double knitting. It doesn't act like double knitting, although it's got some, it's just quirky, and it's really, really interesting. So this hasn't got a name yet, and obviously it's still on the needles, and it's still, can you see at the beginning, every time I changed colour, I was leaving ends. I've said this before, I hate weaving in ends. I absolutely hate weaving in ends. So so from a certain point onwards, as in where my nose is, that point there, there's no more ends to weave in. I'm spit splicing as I go, and I don't care if there's a little bit of marling for a few stitches. It's a much easier way of doing it. And look, it's just got this, it's like it rolls around from one side to the other. It's a really, really interesting technique, and I think there's a lot of mileage in this. There are certain limitations to the patterns you can design with it, pretty similar to, this is why I use the same chart, pretty similar to the limitations that there are with mosaic knitting, and therefore double knitted mosaic knitting. But it is fascinating to experiment and play with it, and it is so easy. So for anybody out there who's perhaps always thought, I really love that double knitting, but you know, maybe, I don't know, there are lots of people who suffer from arthritis and can't necessarily hold 2 yarns and can only hold 1 at a time, or just have never managed to get to grips with doing it with, excuse me, to get to grips with doing it with 2. Or you just think, oh, it's too much hard work. You can work with 1 yarn. So it's literally, I work with 1 yarn, there and back, switch, there and back, switch, there and back, switch, there and back. And I can't tell you how easy it is. There's no difficulty in this at all. It's one of the easiest things in the world, but you get all the benefits really of double knitting, just without the mirror image. Well, you get the mirror image, you just don't get the negative image. Do you know what I mean? It's really, really fascinating. So watch this space for that one. That's something I'm really looking forward to. Then going back to my double knitted brioche. So I was playing around with double knitted brioche is obviously a form of brioche, and as we all know, brioche rib is knit purl, knit purl, knit purl. So the columns that, as you see building up in the work, they have a ridge of knit stitches and a furrow of purl stitches, a ridge of knit stitches, and you get this really sort of big undulating texture, and it's really, really exciting, and it's very structural. Through some discussion with a friend of mine, Beata, we started playing around with the idea of not just 1x1 rib, but other types of rib that you could work double knitted brioche in as well. And one of the things we were looking at was 2x2. So rather than knit purl, knit purl, knit purl, knit purl, you'd be knit knit under the same yarn over, purl purl under the same yarn over, knit knit under the same yarn over, purl purl under the same yarn over, and that was really coming up together very, very well. Then we were sort of talking about all the honeycomb double knitted brioche, which have I even spoken about it on the podcast at all? So honeycomb double knitted brioche. Let me just go off camera for a second to grab a hat so I can show you some of the honeycomb brioche texture so you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so it's not a hat. I couldn't lay my hands on the hat, but I've made a blanket in honeycomb double knitted brioche. So this is the section which is ordinary double knitted brioche, and this is what the honeycomb double knitted brioche looks like. It's the most beautiful texture, actually. It's kind of hard to see. Can you see it almost looks like it's got fish scales or like a chainmail over the top of the red stitches, and it's completely reversible, of course it is. And that side's got the red mesh over the top of it. It's absolutely lovely. So that's I won't go into the details of how it's done because that's all in the book. That's a huge blanket, by the way. So I'll put that out of the way over there. But I started looking at the idea of, once we'd innovated that, looking at a honeycomb 2x2 double knitted brioche. And I came up with this cowl, which I cannot wait. I haven't shown this to anybody on any social media, I don't think. So it combines sections of double knitting, pictorial double knitting, with honeycomb 2x2 double knitted brioche, and then a little section of 2x2 ribbed double knitted, 2x2 ribbed double knitted brioche in the centre. I'm excited, and it looks like this. I'm so excited about this. So this is the cowl, to be worn however you like around the neck, but this is what, just look at it. Looks so complicated, but it's really easy to do. So this is obviously double knitting, and obviously on the other side it looks like that, so you can wear it either way out, completely 100% reversible. I've got acorns and oak leaves going around the top and bottom, which I just love. But then this is the texture. So which way up was it knitted? This is the right way up. So this is the texture here. You can see this 2x2 honeycomb is absolutely glorious. It looks very, very complex. It's really not. And then here in the center, this is what the 2x2 ordinary double knitted brioche but 2x2 version rib looks like. You can see there's 2 columns of orange knit stitches there, and there are actually 2 columns of the white or the light grey making up the purl stitches on this side and the knit stitches on that side. So that's what it looks like. Isn't that fascinating? It's amazing. I've never seen anything like this before, and I think I love it. I absolutely love it. I can't tell you how much I love it, in fact. So this for me, this is one of the most exciting things I've been playing with over the last 18 months, and I can't wait to unleash that on the world. The book doesn't go into 2x2 double knitted brioche at all, so this is an extended technique for after the book. So as with all of my patterns, you won't need to buy the book in order to make this. You can buy this as a standalone pattern. It will have all the information you need in the tutorial pages and in the pattern pages itself. But an understanding of double knitted brioche, not important, but certainly be helpful, I think. But I will absolutely be making sure that that this is something you can make just from the pattern pages itself. How beautiful is that? I do love it. I really, really do. Genuinely. I haven't looked at this for a long time and I'm just sort of falling in love with it all over again. It's nice when you can fall in love with your own work, isn't it? Some people might call it arrogant. I just call it fortunate. I tend to like the things I do. So that's that and that and that and that and that. What else is there? Oh, so while we're talking about the 2x2 double knitted brioche, I came up with this scarf, which I'm calling the 2/2 scarf because it's literally in 2 halves. One end is black and red, the other end is yellow and turquoise. And this is, I love the texture of this. It's so chunky and feels really, it's just glorious. And it's just 2x2, it's not honeycomb. So if you compare the two, you can see that the sort of the lattice work here is created in a very different way from the lattice work here. That is a lattice, but oh, just look at that. This is actually done with little cables. So you're just sort of splitting up the 2x2 here, dividing it there and then bringing them back together. That's just done with cables. It's quite simple to do. And it, again, fully reversible and looks like that on the back. But look at the just the texture of this. If I fold it in half and then hold it up, you can see the ridges and furrows across there. It's really sculptural, really fantastic. And the reason why it's a 2/2 scarf is not just because of the colours, but because the pattern changes halfway through. So this one is sections of that sort of lattice work there, and whereas on the second half, when you get to the halfway mark, we've gone into these sort of little diamonds. It's the same effect. It's the same technique. These little details here are made with the same lattice work, but it's just different placement of it. So the lattice work creates these little diamond shapes rather than the bands across it. So that is the 2/2 scarf. This one's really, really long. It's incredibly thick, incredibly squishy. It feels in some ways like a university scarf. I love it. I haven't worn this out and about because I haven't photographed it yet, but it is incredibly squishy. And the idea is that being the 2 halves, what you've got here is you've got one end is what I call, well, one end is the dark colours, the dark red and the dark grey. The other end is the light colours, which is the yellow and the turquoise. But in both, one of the two colours is a cool colour, the grey, and one is a warm colour, the red. One is a cool colour, the blue, and one is a warm colour, the yellow. So in both combinations, you've got 2 lights and 2 darks, but on one side you've got 2 warms, and on the other side you've got 2 cools. So the colour placement to get the right effect is sort of kind of important on this one, even though it is essentially just 4 colours, and they are exactly half and half. I'm really, really happy with that. I can't wait to unleash that one onto the world as well. Still in the world of 2x2 double knitted brioche, I put together this cowl. I think this one, I did show this one on social media. This I just love. It's so, it's so structural. It stands up on its own. It really, it really does stand up on its own. You can literally stand it up on a chair and it sits there. But look at, so this is not unlike this one where it's done with little cables to just split things up. This is increases and decreases to create the illusion that, for example, that this 2x2 branch here splits off into two separate 2x2 branches with the pearls in the middle. And then as they come together, can you see how this one skews over the top and magically eats up that one, and the lines beautifully come together like that. This is knitting engineering at its best, I think. And on the inside, it looks just as gorgeous. What I love about this one is you can have it like a ruff, and it's just I'm in love with it. So this is the fun that I've been having with 2x2 double knitted brioche, and all of this 2x2 stuff will be coming out post book. I've got to find a way of writing this up. I've got all the notes and stuff. I know I did, but in terms of writing it up, it's not hard, but explaining it's hard, if you see what I mean. I have to find a whole new vocabulary really to describe this stuff. Isn't that just glorious? Just beautiful. I love it so much. I really do. I really do. So this is a pattern that I can't release. I won't release, unfortunately, because it's not my work. What I wanted to do with the double knitted brioche ebook, I wanted to have a chapter on translating, and there is a chapter on translating patterns that were written for traditional 2-pass brioche and being able to work them as 1-pass double knitted brioche. So because, as I said earlier, there's only the patterns that are in my book so far, and the ones that I've got coming out later, which use this stuff. So, but there's a wealth of amazing patterns out there, most notably by Nancy Marchant, who is a big heroine of mine, which I thought, wouldn't it be lovely if you could take her amazing work and give it the double knitted brioche treatment, so you have slightly denser fabric, and have the reversibility, because ordinary brioche is not reversible. So I took her lapgan pattern, candle flame lapgan pattern chart. This is just for myself. This is not in the book. This is literally just for me to see if I could take one of her charts and read it through the lens of double knitted brioche and successfully create it in double knitted brioche. And hers is a big old blanket. I just did a couple of pattern repeats and sort of continued knitting until I ran out of yarn, and then I just grafted the beginning to the end. So I've given myself a little horizontal cowl, and it's really lovely. So this pattern is the Candle Flame Lapgan, and it is by Nancy Marchant. But as you can see here, on the yellow side, all of those decreases and increases all stack up beautifully, and you turn it inside out. And whereas you would get some gaps and things like that on the wrong side of ordinary, that's where I did the graft. It's not perfect graft, but it's all right. Again, this is how all the things are. It's glorious, absolutely glorious, and you can be worn. It's very big and bouncy and very lovely. So there's nothing I'll be able to do with this. I guess there's a world where I could ask Nancy if she would like to go into some sort of collaboration with me on this, but I suspect it'll just be, it's not really a pattern, because all the techniques are in the book and the chart is hers. So I haven't, do you know what I mean? It's not anything that I can certainly or want to make money out of. Even if people tell me they want to knit it, well, if you want to knit this, you're going to have to do what I did, really, and go and learn how double knitted brioche works by buying the book. Learn how you can translate a chart to suit double knitted brioche from traditional brioche, and then find it and buy Nancy's pattern, and then you can make one of these yourselves. So I think that's what we'll say on that front. So don't come to me for this, come to me for the techniques, go to Nancy for the pattern, and then you've got this, you can make it yourself. So that's some lovely stuff. And then finally, When I say finally, for the last thing that I've knitted that I want to talk about. This is a pattern for post book as well. It's another cowl. I'm really into my cowls at the moment because they're not the same investment of time as a scarf or anything like that, but they're a little bit more. There's a little bit more room to play with than there is on a hat. But this is double knitted brioche, but it's using syncopated double knitted brioche. Now, syncopated double knitted brioche just means knitting columns of pearls and purling columns of knits to sort of swap things over so that one colour becomes dominant, whereas the other recedes to the background, sort of like that. Where the fingers of this hand, they're the dominant one all the way up there, but at a certain point, this one takes over, if that makes sense. And this is what it looks like. So it's got this lovely sort of chevron-y pattern in it, which becomes more apparent. There you go, look at that. Isn't that fun? It's almost like illusion knitting, where the pattern becomes more apparent from an angle, like that, and then on the other side is like that. But of course, being double knitted brioche, you turn it inside out, and then you've got the reverse is true. But this is double knitting as well. So I always show the jog. Always manage to show the jog first. Idiot. So I've got sections of double knitting and reverse stocking stitch double knitting before going into the syncopated brioche sections, and they're really stretchy. It's really lovely. And then this other section in the center, which is a reverse version of that, with the colours switched around, and then the bottom bit where the chevrons go the other way, and then at the bottom we've got that as well. And this is nice and tall, so this is lovely to wear because you can sort of almost snood it if you want to, but actually it's just really nice to have. It's really nice to have around your neck in these winter days, or you can double it over like that as well. It's quite hairy. So am I. So that is also just to be able to showcase what syncopated double knitted brioche can do, which I think is it gives you kind of fun textures and nice to play with, and again really super duper easy to do. So that's all the bits and pieces, but there's one other thing that I want to share with you that it's not in the book, it's not a thing, it's just a swatch at the moment. It was just in my head, proof of concept, and it came as a result of a bit of backwards and forwards on Instagram with a designer who's brilliant, actually. I thought she was talking about double knitted brioche. Turns out she wasn't. She was talking about ordinary brioche, but her question sparked me to think about doing what she was suggesting in my version, in double knitted brioche, which was coming up with a pattern that, rather like non-mirrored double knitting, where you've got two different patterns, one on either side, could you come up with a way of working a pattern in double knitted brioche which is not the same on either side? And I have to say, this nearly broke my brain. I've done it, and I'm really pleased with it, but it was scary. So here's the pattern on one side. It's a really nice pattern, actually. It's slightly lacy. You can't really see it here, but there are little holes. Yeah, you can just, hey, you see there's little holes in there? See if I move it across like that. I can't see the screen, so I don't know what you can see. I'll see that at the edit and think, oh, that was terrible. So there's little holes in there, and it's a very nice pattern anyway, and would make a lovely scarf, I think. A really nice scarf if I were to continue that. It's really pretty, very simple. The big surprise comes when you turn this over and it doesn't look like that on the back. You ready? It looks like that on the back. Yeah, it's a bit wiggly, forgive me. Proof of concept though, it's this pattern stays completely consistent, and I was working from the bottom up here and I got to this point. All I was trying to do was maintain a 1x1 rib across the back while working the lacy pattern on the front. And then I thought, well, I wonder if And you can. So I've got these pattern photos. If I had continued this pattern up and maybe sort of joined those there, it would have been like, it would have been like that, wouldn't it? Just like that on the back. Can be done. It's going to be a bit wiggly because there's a lot of displacement of stitches, but I thought that was really, really interesting. And I don't mind the wiggle, actually. I think the wiggle's kind of fun. That's really nice and uniform. And if I had done that pattern all the way up. The crazy thing is, this is a 3-pair repeat, and that's a 4-pair repeat. So even, this is why it broke my brain. So on the front, it's every 4, is it every 4? 1, 2. So no, it's a 2-pair repeat, so 4 stitches. Do you know, I can't actually remember. I don't want to waste anyone's time by thinking about this now. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so it's a 2-pair repeat on the front. Obviously it changes row by row, but it's a 3-pair repeat on the back. So it's not even as if it's just this chunk is done like this and then you repeat it and then you repeat it, then you repeat it. It's this chunk is done like this and that one spills out over there. So next time this chunk is in there, it's on the end of that chunk. And so the 2 patterns don't even fade, they go out of phase with each other. And I wasn't writing any of it down. It made my brain bleed a little bit. But I think you'll agree that as proof of concept, it's well worth playing with. So there you go. In just over an hour, I've taken you through nearly about 18 months worth of knitting fun and innovation. So what's currently on my needles now? I have got a cabled double knitted brioche scarf. This is not for the book. This is again for after the book. This is the second. This is a reknit actually, because I'm not going to go into any details here, but the first one got lost. A friend of mine borrowed it to photograph and did some beautiful photography for it. So thankfully I have the photographs. She gave the bag back to Ben when she saw him, and it didn't make it home after he took care of it, and he's devastated, and I've tried not to make him feel guilty about it. But I'm reknitting it again in different colours, so I get another option and it's fine. And it looks like this. I really like this. It's very simple. This is cabling. Of course, it looks identical on the back, just with the colours switched up. I have to stop this because I've run out of red yarn. I've only got like 14 inches left, and I'm about halfway through the length of the scarf. It needs to be about twice as long as it is. So it starts with a little ribbon there, and it just comes into this cabling. It's really structured, really, really nice. So that's that. The other thing that's currently on my needles, apart from this one that you've already seen, is something which is now completely crazy. There is one more hat that I am going to try and find, so forgive me when I go off camera a second, because it's the birth of, this hat was the birth of another new technique which I'm furthering in this, but I want to show you the hat first, so hold on a sec. So, I told you I don't plan anything. I think I've shown this on social media. I can't remember if I have. This is the hat. It's a beauty, I think you'll agree. And you're right, it's 4 colours. It borrows techniques from triple knitting and a bit from the multi-marled double knitting. So this is triple knitting, it's not quadruple knitting. There are 4 colours, but it's not quadruple knitting. And if we show you the inside, it looks like that. It's just lovely. It's just, I love this hat so much. I can't tell you how much I love this hat. It's only 3 layers. Now, the trick is what's happening with the 2 colours in the middle layer, the 2 colours that are not being used, because you can see 2 colours at a time. There's the turquoise backed with the dark blue. There's the dark blue backed with the dark grey. There's the dark grey backed with the light grey. And there's the light grey backed with the turquoise again, and that's the cycle. What's going on in the middle is the clever stuff. I don't really want to talk about that too much now. I'm sure some of you could probably work it out. But that is 4-colour triple knitting. It's not quadruple knitting because there's only 3 layers, and I will fight anyone tooth and nail who tries to convince me otherwise. It is 4-colour triple knitting because there are 3 layers of knitting. So that, again, that will be coming out as a pattern at some point after the book and over the course of next year. So there's lots of innovative stuff coming on, but I'm taking that concept and creating this cowl, which is again 4-colour triple knitting, but this time it's lace, just because I can't help myself, and it looks like this. So, oh golly, it's I'm not gonna lie, it's slow going, it's really slow going, but look, there's no float, so this still has all the stretch you could imagine, and it's definitely lace. It's definitely got, you can see my nose ring glinting through the holes there. And again on the inside, it's just as lovely as the outside with all the colours reversed. The colours, weirdly, these colours sequence around the cycle A, B, C, D. So A backs B, B backs C, C backs D, D backs A, and you're rounded in a circle again. This one, the colours are in pairs. So can you see this leaf here is green and brown on the inside, it's yellow and blue on the outside, and then this one, which is yellow and blue on the inside, is green and brown on the outside. So in this case, we've got A, B, C and D. A backs D and D backs A, B backs C and C backs B. So that it's a different way of working the same technique. You can sort of switch the colours around any way you like, but isn't that just beautiful? So what's going to happen with this as it progresses, I'm just getting to the stage now where I'm starting. So this is as high as it's going to be, and it's now going to start to spread out, so it'll sit around my shoulders, almost like a dicky, like that to there, and that's what it's going to. So fluffy. And of course, I'm working with all 4 colours at once, and I hold 2 in one hand and 2 in the other, and that is where I'm going with this kind of stuff. I do love it. I absolutely do love it, and it looks, so on the inside, it looks pretty similar, although what's brown on the outside is blue on the inside. I promised myself I'd keep this down to an hour, but I've gone way over that. So as you can see, I've been a busy boy, and that's probably another of the reasons why I haven't been podcasting. It has been thrilling being back with you all. It has. I really hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you enjoy seeing what I've been up to over the last 18 months. And I'm back now, and there'll be more of this coming your way, hopefully very soon, with more ramblings and more stuff. This has sort of been a bit of a collective retrospective, if you like, of what I've been up to. I will keep updating you on the book as it comes together, and making sure that you're up to date with everything there. If you want to stay really up to date with any of my pattern releases and things like that, anything that I have talked about today that you're interested in as and when it comes out, then do sign up to my newsletter if you haven't already. I don't send out very many newsletter emails. It's all done by MailChimp. It's all GDPR compliant, and you can do that by visiting www.sockmatician.com/newsletter, and or if you just go to my website and hang around on the front page, on the home page for about 5 seconds, a little whoosh comes in. You can add your email address there, and I should say that if you are on my email mailing list, then I always put a little discount with a new pattern, so as a little thank you for loyal subscribers. But thank you to everybody for watching. Thank you for being part of my onward journey. You'll never know how much it means to me that you're still here, and I really appreciate it, and I love you and I miss you. And so for now, this is me signing off and saying that while this podcast episode is now very definitely a finished object, remember, life is a work in progress. Just take it one stitch at a time. I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Bye-bye. Zip!